So this is about a family business that has innovated, adapted, and grown for nearly 300 years. From time to time, people ask us, well, how has this all happened? I'm not sure we really know. It's kind of day by day. And there's been a lot of good luck along the way, and I'll tell you some stories, and you'll see some of that. But ultimately, it's really been about some philosophies, some practices, and some very strongly held values that have guided our way. We just didn't have Dave Wharton 300 years ago to articulate that for us, but you're going to see it's really in line with the basic Evergreen model. So the origins go back to 1728. And a group of business people, included the John Hancock family, had been importing paper from England, very high price. They wanted to start making it locally. They got a 10-year exclusive patent from from Massachusetts Bay Colony to make paper. They made writing, printing, and currency paper, and customers did include Ben Franklin and Paul Revere. That's a photograph of the act that we found in the State House. This cheerful guy, Mark Hollingsworth, was a paper maker from Delaware. He was part of the Quaker community there. For some reason, he came to Boston. Not sure if he was invited to leave or he was looking for a job, but he came and went to work for that business. And in a short time, did very well, and he was able to buy it out. And the business prospered. And I think when I look at that picture, it's a little bit scary, but you can see the determination and the perseverance that kind of got the ball rolling. A fun-filled evening in the Hollingsworth home. There's Mark sitting in the middle. His wife, who was also a Quaker, her name was Wait Still Unto the Lord. And they had 5 sons, 2 daughters, who survived into adulthood. 4 of the sons went into the paper business. In his 60s, Mark gave the mill to the oldest son, mortgaged his home. We still have the actual mortgage document. Bought the Revere Copper Works from the Paul Revere family and started another mill with his 2 younger sons, and he worked side by side with them for many years. And the business did okay, but then it really started to struggle. And in the 1830s, and there was an economic collapse in 1837, they ran out of money. And for years they had been buying sails from the port of Boston, and they would cut the rope trim off of the sails and take the cotton and they'd causticize it and treat it and make paper out of it. Well, they couldn't buy anymore. So they said, well, we have all these cuttings of the rope, let's try that. And they got the original patent on manila paper. And this is a photograph from the 1800s of a bunch of workers with bales of manila fiber. And luckily, later in the 1800s, when electrification came, it turned out by luck that manila paper was the material of choice for insulating those copper wires. And the business grew and kind of got onto a technical and industrial track, and that really sparked the long-term growth of H&V. Okay, H&V today, we're a leading global producer of filtration media and battery separator materials, 7th generation family company, about 2,200 employees, and over 125 shareholders. This is a photograph of one of our plants in Hawkinsville, Georgia. So you haven't heard, or not many people have heard of H&V, but we're really all around you. There's a good chance that the air we're breathing in this auditorium is filtered through filters that have H&V material in them. But H&V's filter materials go into hospitals, clean rooms, semiconductor plants, power generation, N95 face masks, ventilators, dozens of different applications all around. And the battery separator materials go into standby power for telecommunications, data centers, and more recently, most start-stop cars have H&V material in them, in the batteries that enable that start-stop functionality. We like to think that H&V's products and materials are really critical enabling technologies addressing some of the most important current needs for clean air, clean liquid, and energy storage. So some of you may remember the bad hair days from the 1970s. I was just one of 20 members of the sixth generation. I was looking for a job. My dad didn't work there. I kind of liked the business. I'd had a summer job. I worked in the plants, mostly on shift work, for about 5 years. I left to go to business school and then to do something very different. I worked for a while in the investment banking group at Lehman Brothers in New York. Very different, completely different, non-evergreen headset. Came back, which I'd always wanted to do. Worked in a bunch of different jobs, a lot of lateral moves, sales, marketing, manufacturing, international. Ran a division, was COO, became CEO. And I'm currently the chair of the board of directors, having happily handed off the leadership role to Josh Ayer, a Tugboat member who's right over here. So what is H&V's purpose? As a bunch of kind of old Quaker family people, talking about purpose isn't all that easy. So I put in a picture of a baseball team from our West Groton, Massachusetts plant, because it's really about people and things that we can do to try to improve people's lives. I've got a few PowerPoint pictures that are kind of the standard, mission, vision, values stuff. And I'll go through that, but when I think about it, my wife said, well, what does this really mean? And it's really, I think of people who were in the generation ahead of me, who I knew very well. And there was a sense of absolute determination, commitment, value, pride, that really has been a key part of why the business has continued. So our mission is creating a cleaner, healthier, more sustainable world. Everything we make just about goes into a filter or a battery. About 10 years ago, we created a mission statement. I'm not going to go through it all, but it addresses the interests of all the major stakeholders, the people, the community, the environment, customers, shareholders, and importantly at the end, and this was drafted with our board of directors, is we want to grow H&V as a privately held and profitable company into the future. And the basic values we distilled down to innovation, commitment or perseverance, and integrity. So how have we been able to reinvent many different times over a long period? And I came across this article by Mark Leslie, who's a professor at Stanford. He said that the key to enduring growth is strategic transformation. When a company is willing to take on the risk of transformation and the risk of existential risks, it can achieve new levels of growth and extend its horizons. So, the typical company will have 1, 2, maybe 3 growth curves. Think of, examples like BlackBerry or Blockbuster or Kodak. And the lifespan of companies is much shorter now. 50 or so years ago, average S&P company was about 50 years old or more. Today, the average in the S&P is about 15 years. So these pressures are really significant. Clayton Christensen, in his great book, The Innovator's Dilemma, wrote that most companies are rarely able to build a case for investing in disruptive technologies until it's too late. Dave, thinking of your presentation yesterday, the pressures on a private equity company, the pressures on a public company, we've had a lot of latitude. And a lot of things we've tried haven't worked, but we had enough persistence and enough commitment to try a lot of different things, and that's worked out. So this is a picture of H&V's history, where we've had many points along the way where we have reinvented our business. We have a team of 130 scientists, 40 of them are PhDs. They work full-time on working with our customers, working in the markets. We have a strong marketing team as well, a new business development team. So we're investing a lot in trying to find the opportunities to grow. There's a strong feeling that we've asked our cousins, our family, to commit a huge part of their wherewithal to this company. And we just don't want to take the chance of being obsoleted. So I've got a few stories of examples of some of this thinking. And by the way, it's not just product and market innovation. It's processes, it's footprint, its capability, its equipment, its people. So back in the 1950s or so, there were many dozens of small family-owned paper mills in the Northeast and the Midwest. My uncle, who was also named Mark Hollingsworth, was head of the company for a long time. He realized we needed to do something different. So he created this brand new plant in Floyd, Virginia. For a bunch of New Englanders, this was our first international expansion. Different process, different technology, not paper at all. In fact, today, H&V really doesn't make anything that's paper. It's all specialty materials. But this put H&V on a whole new growth vector. And a lot of our highest performing products have different materials, synthetics, extrusions, a process that uses an electrospinning technology to keep us on the cutting edge. That was a big change in direction. Other big moves. We realized, we made a number of expansions in Europe, but we realized we had to be in Asia. We spent the better part of 15 years traveling China. I can't count how many trips I made, our whole team made, looking for a company, often partners. We didn't find one we thought would really fit our business, our values. We ended up with a greenfield in Suzhou, China. This has been a really great success for us. And a lot of long-term, a lot of 15-year employees have stuck with us. They feel that sense of the family business. More recently, we started a plant. We bought a company and invested in it in southern India, in Mysore, India. But these are the kinds of big, bold moves. We were the first Western company out of either the US or Europe to get an operating presence in these countries. And so we've been looking at the business really in a generational context, thinking, hey, if we want to be around for a really long time, we need to be active in these parts of the world. The next example is more of a product innovation. This is a nanowave filtration material. It's an advanced air filtration media. It's capable of removing viruses from the airstream. And it uses about 30% less energy than other materials, which is a big deal in the filtration industry, where most of the cost of filtration is actually the energy to pump the liquid or the air through the material. And this is a product we started on. We were in love with it 20 years ago. And we invested in it. Customers really weren't that interested. It was too different. But we had the staying power to stick with it and keep improving it. And our guys came up with new ideas. We developed a completely home-developed process to make it. And actually, in the last few years, as energy costs have gone up and concern about air quality has gone up, this business has started to really grow and prosper. But it would be really hard to do that, for a lot of companies. So our overall business approach, actually, I'm going to talk about this picture here. This is our second plant in Hawkinsville, Georgia, that was recently built, and it produces a microfiberglass material that goes into batteries for start-stop vehicles. H&V spent a huge amount of money supporting the growth of that industry. That product technology in that application plays a role in reducing carbon emissions that are in the scale of 10 to 12 million vehicles off the road per year. So that helps us fulfill our mission of delivering a cleaner world. So a great focus on innovation and technology, a willingness to obsolete current products, a very high reinvestment rate. I don't think there's been any new equity brought into the company in nearly 200 years. Long-term customer relationships and a lot of great people. So a little bit about our governance and the family. So this is a picture of our board of directors in 2017 dedicating a solar field near our plant in Eastern New York. We have 5 main branches of the Hollingsworth family. They're all represented on the board. These are all people with professional backgrounds and capabilities. We've also got really strong independent board members. And going back probably more than 50 years, we've had a fiduciary board with strong independent directors. And as much as Josh and I might like easier board meetings, it's open season. A lot of tough questions, a lot of debate. But at the end of the day, people come around. There's a high level of support and commitment. We use NACD, National Association of Corporate Directors, practices. We've been audited by a top accounting firm for many, many years. Some of our independent directors have said to me they think that we're about as close to following a public company governance model as a family company is likely to do. We've also had a very structured CEO succession process that began nearly 2 years before we made our decision, we hired an outside firm to help guide us through a process to make sure that we were selecting the best outcome. Fortunately, it was Josh, who'd been with H&V for more than 12 years. And as things have played out, of our last 6 CEOs, 3 of them have been from outside the family. Not always is the family going to have someone who can step in and run things. This is a photograph of some shareholders visiting our plant in Floyd, Virginia. We have an annual stock repurchase program and a dividend policy that supports high reinvestment. All of the growth is funded essentially through retained earnings and debt that, we increase the debt and then try to bring it back down. We also have clear guidelines for family employment. It's important for family members who work in the business, and we now have several Gen 7s working in the business, that they know that more is expected of them and that promotion, advancement has really got to be about meritocracy, largely to be fair to the many non-family members who are really the people that make the company work. Right now, a lot of focus on generational transition. Although we're an old company, that doesn't give us any guarantee that we're going to get it right for this next generation. So we're doing a lot to engage the next generation. We've got 2 great 7th generation people recently joining our board of directors, and they're playing an active role in helping us chart our course on how best to help this new generation step in and play a leading role. The business model, what's the offering proposition for someone owning H&V shares? First off, it's got to be a good investment. It has to be competitive over time with other investments. But we look at it more like an endowment where almost all the shareholders work or are retired. We've got doctors, lawyers, social workers, teachers, a writer, we've got a bishop. But it's really about having a sense of greater purpose that goes along with the investment return and the opportunity for this to amplify people's ability to contribute to the world. So this is a picture from a recent shareholders meeting. So kind of distilling this down, it's really about people again. And as we look to foster the culture and evolve going forward, we really want to make sure that we hang on to the core parts of that have gotten us here. A lot of it's about respect for our people and their well-being, their interests, but also a focus on performance, recognizing we've got to punch above our weight class often and compete with much larger companies on a global scale in some tough industries. This is a photograph of a team in our Suzhou, China plant after recently starting up a new production line. As I travel around, you spend time with them, people in India. It's really fun to see how this kind of old mindset, evident in the generation 5 people that I grew up with, somewhat evident in that determined picture of Mark Hollingsworth. That's still alive and thriving now, and it has been transplanted into China, India, Germany, Mexico, other places. So with that, with the product capability, I'm very hopeful. I think we have a great chance maybe of keeping this going, maybe for another 100 years. We'll try. So I just want to, and these are some articles and a couple of books that I found really helpful to me, and so I thought I'd put them up there in case you found some value from that. There's the Mark Leslie article about the arc of company life. Josh Barron, who's spoken here, and Rob Lockenauer. This family business handbook from Harvard Business Review is terrific. And this whole notion of founder's mentality that I know has been discussed here before has also been very helpful. So with that, thanks for your attention. It's been great to visit with you. Thanks.